Hi everyone! Before we get started, I just want to let you know that the video you're about to listen to is for nostalgic purposes only. I decided to make this video because my two previous show history videos have been really popular with you all, so I thought, why not continue on with that? Bluey is a 2018 Australian animated children's series that follows a 6-year-old blue heeler puppy named Bluey who lives with her father Bandit, her mother Chilli, and her younger sister Bingo. Set in suburban Brisbane, the show focuses on Bluey's boundless imagination as she transforms ordinary situations, like going to the park, helping around the house, or visiting friends, into playful adventures and games that encourage creativity, problem solving, and empathy. Each episode highlights family bonds, everyday humor, and the joy of learning through play. Bluey has quickly become one of the most beloved pups in children's television, capturing hearts around the world since her debut in 2018. This energetic 6-year-old blue heeler isn't just known for her playful spirit, she's celebrated for her curiosity, creativity, and big heart. Through her imaginative games, Bluey teaches young viewers about friendship, empathy, teamwork, and problem solving, while her relatable family life resonates with parents too. Supported by her loving sister Bingo and wise yet silly parents, Bandit and Chilli, Bluey has become a cultural icon whose stories are enjoyed by kids and adults alike, making her a global symbol of the magic of play. However, this wasn't the only time Bluey was on television. Decades before the 2018 series, the lovable pup had already wagged her tail onto screens in a very different vintage form. Back in 1962, Bluey appeared in a Hanna-Barbera style animated series, complete with limited animation, jazzy background music, and colorful mid-century designs that captured the charm of Saturday morning cartoons of the era. But how did the lovable Blue Pooch get the spotlight? Was it the catchy theme music, the whimsical stories, or the way she brought families together in front of the TV every week? To truly understand how Bluey first found her way into the spotlight, we have to step back in time, way back to 1960. Television was still finding its rhythm, and Saturday mornings were slowly becoming a haven for colorful, family-friendly programming. It was during this era that two men, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, unleashed what would become one of the most well-known and influential animated series of all time, The Flintstones. This Stone Age sitcom broke new ground by bringing animated characters into a primetime slot, proving that cartoons could entertain both children and adults. Its success would inspire a wave of imaginative, character-driven shows in the years to come, opening the door for all sorts of new ideas, including the first incarnation of a certain lovable blue pooch. The story of Bluey's beginnings is said to take place during a time when a struggling family was doing everything they could to raise their economic standing. But, unfortunately, their efforts would come with major side effects. One day, a poor pet shop owner, whose small storefront sat on the corner of a quiet street, was doing his best to find loving homes for the many animals in his care. He spoke often about how countless pets were being taken in by shelters across the country, their futures uncertain, and how every adoption counted. Yet in his shop, there remained only 4 dogs, each one a blue heeler, a hardy working breed known for its loyalty and energy. Among them was a large white-coated male, calm and watchful, and a big ginger-coated female, gentle yet strong. Nestled close to them were their 2 young puppies, one a spirited little female whose markings and coloring matched her father's snowy coat, and the other a curious, warm-toned pup who bore a striking resemblance to her mother. The shop owner's wife and husband, seeing how the days grew longer and the burden of caring for the animals weighed heavily on his shoulders, finally agreed to let their own son and daughter take on the task of looking after the 4 remaining dogs. But before handing over that duty, they made it clear that this was no small favor. It was a true commitment. The children would have to feed them on time, keep their water fresh, clean up after them, and make sure they had space to run and play. It was a promise that required patience, kindness, and diligence. The parents stressed that these dogs weren't just animals in a shop. They were living, breathing companions who needed attention and affection every single day. Only if the children understood the weight of that responsibility, they said, could the arrangement go forward. By 1961, Hanna-Barbera was riding high on the success of the Flintstones and was hard at work producing more animated series that could capture audiences in the same way. They experimented with new settings, new characters, and fresh concepts that could stand alongside their Stone Age hit. One of the most notable of these creations was The Jetsons, a futuristic family sitcom that traded prehistoric rock houses for gleaming space-age skyscrapers. Set in a world of flying cars, robotic maids, and push-button convenience, The Jetsons followed George Jetson, his wife Jane, their teenage daughter Judy, young son Elroy, and their loyal dog Astro as they navigated daily life in Orbit City. It was a bright, optimistic vision of the future, filled with humor, slapstick, and the same warm family dynamics that had made the Flintstones a household name. During that same time, the family with the four healers happened to pass by the Hanna-Barbera studio on a sunny afternoon. As they strolled past, one of the cast members working on a production noticed the sight of the big white male dog, the ginger female, and their two lively puppies trotting alongside the children. Something about the scene, its warmth, its charm, and the way it seemed to tell a story all on its own, sparked an idea. That cast member shared the moment with William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, suggesting it could be the perfect foundation for a brand new show that fit the studio's style and storytelling criteria. In a meeting shortly after hearing the idea, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera spoke enthusiastically about the dogs, remarking on how their distinct colors, personalities, and family dynamic could translate perfectly into animation. They discussed the potential for a series that followed the adventures of a close-knit canine family, each member with their own quirks and charm, set against everyday situations that could be spun into humorous and heartwarming stories. The producers envisioned the show as a blend of light-hearted comedy and gentle life lessons, using the healers themselves as direct inspiration for the characters, ensuring the heart of the real family shone through in the animated world. The concept quickly gained momentum within the walls of Hanna-Barbera, and before long, the show was officially greenlit for a first season consisting of 20 episodes, with a premiere date set for the summer of 1962. William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, drawing on their experience from launching the Flintstones, began reaching out to television stations across the country, pitching their new creation with the same confidence and charm that had secured their earlier successes. They emphasized the show's family-friendly humor, relatable characters, and the unique appeal of centering the stories around a family of healers. After careful negotiation and scheduling talks, it was agreed that the original run would air on ABC, produced under the ABC banner as an official network production. With scripts being finalized, storyboards drawn, and animators hard at work, the stage was set for the lovable Blue Pooch and her family to make their debut on national television. Before the series officially aired, in June of 1962, Hanna-Barbera and their partners began a steady rollout of merchandise between 1961 and May of 1962, offering dolls, plush toys, coloring books, and other novelty items based on the characters that would soon grace television screens. This early wave of products wasn't just about generating revenue. It was a strategic move to spark curiosity, capture the audience's attention, and give families a playful glimpse of the personalities and charm they could expect once the show premiered that summer. On June 2nd, 1962, just a month after The Jetsons concluded its first and, at the time, only season, the brand new Hanna-Barbera series starring the family of healers made its long-awaited debut on ABC. The network promoted the premiere heavily, slotting it into a family-friendly time where parents and children could gather around the television together. Excitement had been building for months, as thanks to the steady stream of merchandise and the buzz generated by Hanna-Barbera's reputation for delivering quality animated programming. When the first episode aired, viewers were introduced to the colorful, mid-century suburban world of the Healers, brought to life with the studio's trademark limited animation, bouncy jazz-inspired score, and lighthearted storytelling. Audiences were immediately drawn in by the warmth of the characters, the playful humor, and the way the series mirrored real-life family dynamics through the antics of its canine stars, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Saturday morning television. The show's first year proved to be a resounding success, winning over audiences across the country with its charming characters, relatable humor, and the unique appeal of centering stories around a family of healers. Ratings were strong from the very start, with episodes often ranking among the most watched children's programs of the week. Merchandising sales also surged, as the dolls, books, and other themed products flew off store shelves, cementing the Healers as household names. Critics praised the series for its warmth and accessibility, noting how it managed to entertain both younger viewers and their parents, a hallmark of Hanna-Barbera's best work. The combination of audience enthusiasm and commercial success made the decision an easy one for ABC and Hanna-Barbera. A second season was officially announced, set to debut in 1963, promising even more adventures for the lovable Blue Pooch and her family. Season 2 premiered in the summer of 1963, picking up right where the first had left off and continuing the legacy of the show with fresh stories, new characters, and even livelier adventures for the Healer family. The series maintained its signature mix of humor, heart, and mid-century charm, further solidifying its place as a staple of ABC's programming lineup. Viewers embraced the new season with the same enthusiasm as before, and the Healers' life's world grew richer, expanding their neighborhood, introducing memorable supporting characters, and exploring more imaginative scenarios while staying true to the warm, family-focused spirit that had made the show a hit from the very beginning. Over time, the success of the Healer family inspired the creation of more shows in different varieties, ranging from spin-offs and specials to animated segments that aired alongside other Hanna-Barbera productions. The projects experimented with new formats, settings, and styles, while keeping the charm and personality of the original series intact. Surprisingly, Bluey's popularity reached beyond television and into breakfast tables when just a few months later, she was given her very own cereal. Brightly packaged and marketed toward children, it featured colorful shapes and a playful design inspired by the characters. But despite the excitement, the cereal was only produced for a limited time before quietly disappearing from store shelves. I didn't want to go through the story one season at a time, so instead, I'll talk about them together. Of course, the success of Season 2 naturally led to a third season, which was released sometime in 1964, keeping the momentum strong with more adventures and heartfelt moments for the Healer family. Riding on that continued popularity, Season 4 soon followed in 1965, further expanding the show's world and securing its place as one of Hanna-Barbera's most beloved creations of the decade. Alongside the show's rising fame in the mid-60s, the wave of Bluey merchandise grew even stronger. Plush toys of Bluey and her family were released, quickly becoming bedtime favorites for kids. Storybooks adapted from episodes hit store shelves, giving children a way to relive the adventures on paper. There were also Bluey lunchboxes, coloring books, puzzles, and even a board game that families could play together. The popularity of the brand was so big that clothing companies began making themed pajamas and t-shirts, turning Bluey into a household name not just on TV, but in everyday life. Suddenly and strangely, after Season 4 of Bluey ended, the series went on a long hiatus from 1966 all the way to 1969. This break puzzled many young viewers at the time, who had grown used to seeing new episodes regularly each year. However, the reason behind this pause wasn't so much about Bluey herself, but rather the busy schedules of the show's creators, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. During these years, Hanna and Barbera were deeply involved in expanding their studio's output, focusing on building entirely new shows to add to their already vast collection of animated hits. Their energy was being poured into launching other series that required their attention, writing, directing, and producing, which meant that Bluey, despite its popularity, had to be temporarily set aside. While it was a quiet period for Bluey fans, the creative explosion happening behind the scenes was monumental, as Hanna-Barbera pushed forward into new frontiers of television animation, ultimately shaping much of the cartoon landscape of that era. Even though the hiatus was long, it wasn't the end of Bluey. After years of waiting, Season 5 of the series finally released in 1970, marking the grand return of the beloved show after William Hanna and Joseph Barbera had shifted much of their focus to other projects in the late 60s. Fans who had grown up with Bluey in its earlier years were thrilled to see new episodes after such a long gap, and the revival proved to be worth the wait, as the fresh season brought back the same charm and humor while blending in subtle touches that reflected the early 70s era of television. Following the strong reception of Season 5, Hanna-Barbera quickly followed up with a sixth season just a year later in 1971, further solidifying the show's place in the studio's lineup of hits. At this time, Bluey radio stories on multiple phonograms were publicly released, which were essentially books of Bluey based off of episodes being told by a storyteller, allowing fans to enjoy the show's tales in a whole new way. The popularity of these phonogram stories only strengthened Bluey's place in households. Season 6's success in 1971 paved the way for a seventh season, which was released just a year later in 1972. With the release of Bluey's seventh season, the first Bluey VHS tapes were introduced, featuring a mix of repackaged older episodes and some newer ones at the time. Following the excitement, Bluey Season 8 premiered in 1973, continuing the legacy a year after the VHS tapes had been launched. As new episodes of Bluey began to air, more merchandise was released for fans, including plush toys, storybooks, board games, lunchboxes, and even themed clothing, making the show a bigger part of everyday family life. In 1974, a ninth season of the show was released, followed by a second part to the season in 1975. This marked the only time a season of the original Bluey series was split into two specific parts across 2 years, and it also served as the show's final season in its original run. Over the years of Bluey's run, audiences were treated not only to its regular seasons, but also to a variety of specials and special episodes that further expanded the charm and heart of the series. These specials often aired during holiday seasons, milestone anniversaries, or as celebratory tie-ins to major events surrounding the show's growing popularity. For instance, Christmas-themed episodes became a yearly tradition, showcasing Bluey and the family in heartwarming seasonal stories that resonated with families watching together during the holidays. There were also back-to-school specials, which were crafted to coincide with the start of each new school year, offering both humor and relatable lessons for children experiencing similar changes. Additionally, anniversary specials were created to honor the show's longevity, with one particular decade-themed episode highlighting how the characters in the world of Bluey had evolved since its inception. Beyond these, crossover specials introduced viewers to guest characters, broadening the universe of Bluey while still maintaining the series' unique identity. These episodes stood apart for their extended runtime, often featuring more elaborate storylines and richer emotional depth. Together, the specials became treasured parts of the Bluey legacy, enriching the viewing experience for longtime fans while creating special moments for new generations discovering the show. By 1976, following the conclusion of Bluey's original run, the impact of the show continued to ripple outward, and the character's popularity began to take on a life of its own beyond television. Stuff for Bluey started appearing everywhere, with a wide variety of merchandise making its way into homes and stores. Bluey-branded food products introduced, ranging from themed cereals to packaged snacks that carried her name and likeness. Decorations featuring Bluey became popular as well, with party supplies, posters, and household items carrying her cheerful imagery. Other products quickly followed, including toys, clothing, school materials, and novelty items, making Bluey not only a television star but also a household name firmly cemented into pop culture. Nothing special happened in the mid to late 70s, as it was just Bluey merchandise still continuing. By the 80s, however, more stuff began happening. A Bluey Happy Meal at McDonald's was introduced in 1981, followed up by a total of 5 Bluey live shows running from 1882 to 1985. Greeting cards with Bluey were also introduced in 1980 and continued running till 2005. All there was in the 90s was that special edition birthday toys were released in 1992 as a way to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the show's release. Some of the VHS tapes were also re-released in the late 80s, keeping the series alive for younger audiences who hadn't seen it originally. Extra stuff that happened in the 90s included a touring Bluey exhibit at several children's museums in 1994, a set of plush toys produced in 1996, and a short-lived comic strip run in kids' magazines from 1997 to 1998. In the late 90s, something big happened with a collaboration between Cartoon Network and Hanna-Barbera. At that time, Cartoon Network was in the process of creating a second network that would be based entirely on classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons, with the promise of adding some Cartoon Network originals and classics to the lineup later on. By the time the year 2000 rolled around, the collaborative idea between Cartoon Network and Hanna-Barbera was finally ready to take shape, with the launch of a brand new sister channel that would be dedicated almost entirely to Hanna-Barbera's iconic library of shows, alongside a gradual mix of Cartoon Network's own early classics. This network, named Boomerang, was designed as a nostalgic hub that catered not only to older audiences who grew up with characters like Yogi Bear, Scooby-Doo, and the Flintstones, but also to younger viewers who were experiencing them for the very first time. William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, still heavily involved in overseeing how their work was preserved and showcased at the time, were determined to fill Boomerang's programming schedule with as much classic content as possible, giving it the authenticity of a living museum of animation. When curating the lineup, the creators also decided to include certain hidden gems that had grown a cult following over the years, among them being the early Bluey episodes that were produced during Hanna-Barbera's experimental phase. While Bluey had not initially gained the same massive recognition as the studio's bigger hits, its quirky charm, memorable characters, and experimental animation style made it an ideal addition to the lineup. On Boomerang, Bluey found a new audience, with episodes airing regularly in rotation alongside heavy hitters like The Jetsons, Wacky Races, and Tom and Jerry. For 8 solid years, from 2000 until 2008, Bluey became a steady part of Boomerang's schedule. Its reruns enjoyed by both those who remembered its earlier days and a new generation of children who discovered it for the first time. Its presence on the channel gave it a cultural revival, allowing discussions of the show to resurface in fan communities, and it further cemented Boomerang's reputation as the home for rare and classic cartoons. However, by 2008, as Boomerang began shifting its focus slightly to include more contemporary programming and rotate out certain titles, Bluey was eventually phased off the platform, ending its near-decade-long run there. Even so, the years on Boomerang were pivotal, as they marked the show's transition from a somewhat forgotten Hanna-Barbera experiment to a treasured piece of cartoon history. As the early 2000s unfolded, the animation world faced a great loss with the passing of William Hanna in 2001 and Joseph Barbera in 2006. The two legendary creators had left behind a legacy that defined television animation for generations, their work shaping childhoods around the globe. For many, their shows weren't just entertainment. They were cultural landmarks, and their influence extended into nearly every corner of the cartoon industry. Among their final contributions to television programming was the decision to allow Bluey, the 1960s Hanna-Barbera-style pup, to air on Boomerang, where reruns continued until 2008. These airings marked the last time audiences saw the original incarnation of Bluey, a character who had once charmed viewers in the golden age of animation, but then quietly disappeared into history. By the time the reruns ended, Bluey was remembered as a relic of an earlier era, never receiving the same constant revivals as Scooby-Doo, Tom and Jerry, or the Flintstones. Fans assumed the character would fade into obscurity, with no new content produced and no official continuation in sight. But as the decade shifted toward the 2010s, something was stirring behind the scenes. A new generation of creators, inspired by Hanna and Barbera's work, but eager to bring fresh perspectives to children's programming, began developing something that would revive the name Bluey in a completely different form. This wasn't to be the same 1960s pup. This was a reinvention, one that would soon capture hearts worldwide and redefine what a preschool show could be in the modern era. Here's a detailed, long-form explanation based on Wikipedia and trusted sources. A new Australian production studio, known as Ludo Studio, based in Fortitude Valley, Queensland, emerged in the mid-2010s with its eyes set on creating a fresh, locally rooted preschool cartoon. Founded in 2012 by Charlie Aspinwall and Daley Pearson, Ludo had already garnered acclaim for inventive digital works like Number 7 Days Later and Doodles, earning international Emmys along the way. Wikipedia, around that same period, Joe Brumm, the creator of Bluey, independently conceived the idea for the show in 2016 through his smaller animation outfit, Studio Joho. He produced a simple 1-minute pilot over his spare time, depicting Bluey being pushed on a swing, ultimately launching into an unsafe 360-degree spin that crashes into her father. Although charming, the scene was deemed just unsafe for young viewers, and the pilot never went beyond industry presentations. Wikipedia, recognizing its potential, Joe approached Ludo Studio, and together they developed an expanded 5-minute animation sample, which they showcased at the 2016 Asian Animation Summit in Brisbane. This polished sample caught the eye of ABC executives, who promptly secured funding, odd $20,000, to commission a refined 7-minute pilot. That pilot, premiered in late 2017, eventually evolved into the episode titled The Weekend in Season 1. Wikipedia. Summary: the two key pilots, 2016 pilot, 1 minute. Produced independently by Joe Brumm's Studio Joho, this raw pilot featured Bluey on a swing, flung by Dad in an unsafe spin. It was never intended for public release due to concerns about suitability. Wikipedia, 2017 pilot, 7 minutes. Developed with Ludo Studio and funded by ABC, this version was pitched at the Asian Animation Summit and later refined into an official episode, The Weekend. It served as the springboard for the full series order from ABC and the BBC. Wikipedia. This valuable overlap of independent creativity and studio collaboration set the stage for Bluey to become the internationally beloved series it is today, while also anchoring its origins firmly in Australian animation innovation. At the time, the notion of shaping a Bluey revival for new generations wasn't just about dusting off an old idea, but rather reimagining what the show could represent in a modern era. Television landscapes had shifted, and children's programming was now expected to blend meaningful lessons with entertainment in ways that resonated with both kids and parents. A revival meant taking what had worked before, the charm of relatable family dynamics, playful imagination, and cultural authenticity, and presenting it in a refreshed light that would appeal to audiences raised in the digital age. It wasn't just nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia. It was about expanding Bluey's core values into something universal yet contemporary. The revival would bring new opportunities to experiment with storytelling structures, modern animation techniques, and broader themes that reflected the world children were growing up in. By doing so, Bluey could remain a staple not only for Australian families, but also find its footing as a global phenomenon, bridging generations of viewers who either remembered its earlier form or were experiencing it for the first time. This deliberate shaping of the revival positioned it as more than a cartoon. It became a cultural connector, blending the past with the present to inspire children and parents alike. Strangely, by the 2010s, Many people didn't even realize that there had been a previous Bluey series before the one they were beginning to know and love. For most of the new generation of children and parents, Bluey seemed entirely fresh, original, and unlike anything they had seen before, with no awareness that it had a history reaching back decades earlier. This lack of recognition wasn't because the earlier series was unimportant, but rather because of how quietly it had faded into obscurity after its original run. Unlike other enduring Australian children's classics that continued to air through reruns or had strong merchandising keeping them alive in the public consciousness, the original Bluey didn't have that same level of sustained cultural presence. By the time the internet began archiving and celebrating older children's programming in the 2000s, the earlier Bluey had mostly slipped through the cracks, with only a handful of references scattered across niche corners of television history. This created a fascinating effect. The new Bluey could be marketed and perceived as if it were the very first of its kind, even though in reality it was building upon a name and legacy that had existed years before. It also meant that when historians, fans, or industry insiders pointed out the existence of the earlier series, it came as a shock to many who simply couldn't believe Bluey had a forgotten past. This strange erasure of memory in the 2010s shaped the way the revival was received, giving it a freshness and mystery that might not have been possible had the original remained in the spotlight. When looking at the differences between the first Bluey series from the 1960s and the second, modern series from 2018 as shown in the image, the contrast between the two eras of animation becomes immediately clear. The original Bluey, created under Hanna-Barbera, carried the distinct style of mid-20th century cartoons, with a flatter, hand-drawn aesthetic and simpler character designs that emphasized expressive, broad movements over fine detail. Bluey herself appeared as a tall, slender blue dog with a tutu, reflecting the anthropomorphic design conventions of Hanna-Barbera's time, reminiscent of characters like Huckleberry Hound or Yogi Bear. Her family members were drawn in a similarly straightforward manner, each dog breed distinguishable but with less individual detail, like focusing on recognizable silhouettes and facial expressions that could be easily animated with the limited production techniques of the early 60s. By contrast, the 2018 series reinvents Bluey entirely for a new generation, with a modern, vibrant, and rounded art style tailored for digital animation. Bluey is no longer a tall, upright anthropomorphic figure, but instead a playful, proportionate, childlike pup designed to be more relatable and appealing to preschool audiences. The new designs emphasize warmth and expressiveness, with big eyes, soft curves, and a focus on family dynamics rather than the classic slapstick antics of the earlier cartoon era. Where the original cast resembled characters pulled from Saturday morning cartoons with a certain distance from realism, the modern versions embody a natural sense of childhood innocence, highlighting play, imagination, and everyday family life. Even the presentation of family differs between the two. The Hanna-Barbera Bluey framed the characters as more archetypical, with generic mom, dad, and kids personalities, whereas the modern Bluey features a more nuanced family unit with distinct roles. Bandit as the playful father, Chilli as the nurturing mother, and Bluey and Bingo as curious, energetic children. Stylistically, the original Bluey fit firmly within the golden age of American television animation, while the 2018 Bluey reflects the current wave of thoughtful children's programming from Australia, which emphasizes emotional depth, realistic family interactions, and cultural authenticity. Together, the two images not only show how animation has evolved over time, but also how the very idea of what children's television should be has transformed, from light-hearted, comedic shorts in the 1960s to meaningful, imaginative, and educational storytelling in the modern day. When the 2010s rolled around and the newer Bluey series was making waves across households worldwide, an odd truth began to surface. Most viewers, even longtime animation fans, had no idea that Bluey had an older incarnation decades prior. The original series had faded so far into obscurity that, to many, The revival felt like an entirely fresh creation rather than a continuation of an earlier property. This generational gap was especially striking because the two versions of the show had marked stylistic differences, most notably in character designs. In the first series, the characters were often shown wearing clothing, simple dresses, shirts, and even accessories, giving them a more anthropomorphic appearance. The revival, however, stripped away this element, embracing a more natural dogs as dogs approach. By keeping them unclothed, the newer series leaned into a universal, timeless style that helped children immediately connect with the characters without the distractions of fashion or outdated attire. Along with these design changes came notable shifts in character personalities and dynamics. For example, in the original run, Bluey herself had a distinct girly girl streak, often leaning toward traditionally feminine traits in how she played, interacted, and even expressed emotions. In contrast, the revival gave her a more balanced and versatile personality. She was adventurous, curious, silly, and imaginative, with a blend of traits that appealed to both boys and girls, broadening her relatability. The mother, Chilli, also underwent a significant change. In the original, she was portrayed with a shorter temper and a tendency to lose patience quickly, often raising her voice when situations became overwhelming. The revival softened her characterization, presenting her instead as warm, empathetic, and patient, with rare flashes of frustration shown in a more grounded, humanized way. These subtle but important adjustments created a cast of characters that felt more real and emotionally resonant, ensuring the revival not only stood apart from its predecessor, but also established itself as the definitive version for modern audiences. The Bluey revival, which many people today recognize as the definitive version of the series, officially premiered on the 1st October 2018 on ABC Kids in Australia. Produced by Ludo Studio in association with Screen Queensland and Screen Australia, the revival quickly gained widespread acclaim for its refreshing take on preschool programming. Unlike the earlier and now mostly forgotten 1990s-2000s incarnation of the show, the 2018 revival placed a strong emphasis on family life, imaginative play, and subtle moral lessons that resonated not only with children, but also with parents. Created by Joe Brum, the series followed the daily adventures of Bluey, a 6-year-old blue heeler puppy, and her family. Bandit, her dad, Chilli, her mom, and her younger sister Bingo. The revival's unique approach, showing stories through the lens of imaginative roleplay and everyday situations, became its trademark charm. The 2018 series introduced new character designs that fully abandoned the clothing style of the earlier show, instead portraying the dogs in natural fur patterns with distinct markings and color palettes. Personalities were refined and balanced. Bluey was presented as spirited, endlessly curious, and playful, rather than leaning heavily into the girly girl archetype of the earlier version. Bingo was reshaped into a softer, more thoughtful counterpart. And Chilli, in contrast to her occasionally temperamental depiction in the original, was given a calmer, nurturing, and more emotionally steady presence in the revival. Bandit's role was greatly expanded too. He became a fan-favorite character due to his comedic timing, creativity, and his ability to blend parental responsibility with fun-loving mischief. The premiere in 2018 was met with critical acclaim and quickly grew into a cultural phenomenon, particularly praised for its emotional storytelling, gentle humor, and relatability. Reviewers noted how the revival avoided being formulaic, often shifting tones between silly fun, heartwarming lessons, and even touching on difficult topics such as growing up, loss, and resilience. Beyond television, the show expanded into books, stage adaptations, and merchandising, reinforcing its popularity worldwide. The revival's success was also partly due to its animation style, warm, colorful, and distinctly Australian in setting, alongside a thoughtful soundtrack that enhanced emotional moments. The show was exported internationally through Disney platforms, widening its audience to a global scale and cementing Bluey as one of the most beloved preschool series of its time. The impact was so strong that, by the early 2020s, many viewers outside of Australia were surprised to discover that a previous version of Bluey had even existed at all, as the 2018 revival had entirely overshadowed its predecessor, both in quality and in cultural memory. Even though the 2018 revival of Bluey would go on to become the version that most of the world would come to know, the original 1980s incarnation still held its own importance for the era in which it first aired. At the time, it carried with it the same kind of educational and value-driven structure that was common in children's programming of its day, embedding moral lessons, problem-solving skills, and family-oriented themes into its episodes. While the pacing, animation style, and tone might now feel dated compared to the polished and emotionally nuanced revival, the original Bluey offered children of its time something that was both comforting and instructive. It spoke to its audience in a direct way, teaching them about responsibility, friendship, empathy, and the little challenges that make up everyday life. Much like its successor, the earlier series operated on a strictly episodic format, delivering self-contained stories that could stand on their own while still feeling like part of a larger, cohesive world. This structure ensured that each installment could present a unique situation or lesson without requiring viewers to have followed every previous episode, making it accessible and flexible for both children and families. While overshadowed in global recognition by the revival, the original was no less sincere in its attempt to connect with kids, laying down a foundation of values and entertainment that mirrored the ambitions of later children's shows. The continuation into the 2018 version can therefore be seen not just as a modern breakthrough, but also as an acknowledgement of the groundwork the earlier Bluey had quietly laid, even if much of the public had, by that point, largely forgotten its existence. When the newer Bluey brand came to life, it wasted no time in climbing into the heights of recognition, much like its predecessor had once done in its own era. As the revival series captured the hearts of children, parents, and even casual viewers with its wholesome storytelling and rich emotional depth, the brand began to branch out far beyond the television screen. Merchandise lines quickly emerged, ranging from plush toys of the Healer family to puzzles, board games, and even musical instruments that tied into episodes of the show. Books followed as well, often expanding on the stories seen on screen or presenting brand new tales in the same spirit. Clothing lines, stationery, lunchboxes, and countless other themed products ensured that Bluey was not just a program to watch, but an experience children could carry into their daily lives. This pattern mirrored the growth of the older series decades earlier, when Bluey-branded toys, storybooks, and simple school supplies carried the same purpose of strengthening a child's bond with the characters. The difference in the 2010s and beyond, however, was the massive scale and international reach the revival was able to achieve, aided by streaming platforms and global broadcasting deals that spread Bluey to regions far beyond its Australian roots. The character designs and themes lent themselves well to collectibles, and parents, noticing the positive lessons the show imparted, were more than happy to invest in products that reinforced its messages. In this way, the newer Bluey brand blossomed into a cultural phenomenon that, while evolving with time, reflected many of the same strategies and emotional appeals that the original version had relied upon during its own rise. The second season of Bluey was officially released in March 2020, continuing the success of the first season while expanding on the themes, stories, and family dynamics that had made the series so well loved. Like the earlier season, it followed the everyday adventures of Bluey, her younger sister Bingo, and their parents Bandit and Chilli. But this time, the writers and creators took the opportunity to introduce more variety in storylines, new characters, and situations that reflected the lives of young children and their families in even more relatable ways. The season was praised for its ability to blend humor, emotional resonance, and life lessons seamlessly into short 7-minute episodes. Many episodes in Season 2 became fan favorites, touching on themes such as creativity, resilience, kindness, and the importance of family time. The show's creators also explored slightly deeper narratives while keeping the charm and warmth intact, showing that Bluey was not only entertaining, but also a valuable tool for teaching empathy and understanding. Season 2 also came with notable extras, including extended availability on streaming platforms and the release of more merchandise inspired by the series. This included expanded toy lines, books, clothing, and even board games, allowing children and families to connect with the show beyond the screen. The popularity of the series also led to international distribution deals, bringing Bluey to new audiences around the world and cementing its reputation as one of the most significant children's shows of its era. In addition to the episodes themselves, behind-the-scenes features, interviews with the creators, and promotional shorts further enriched the experience for fans. These extras highlighted how carefully crafted the series was, from the writing and voice acting to the animation and musical composition. Season 2 ultimately demonstrated that Bluey was not just a one-time success, but a franchise with staying power, capable of growing with its audience while still remaining true to its original heart and message. During the time when Bluey's second season was released, the series began cementing itself not only as a local Australian success, but also as a global phenomenon. The release of new episodes expanded on the show's already established themes of family life, imaginative play, and gentle humor, but it also introduced fresh narratives that delved deeper into emotional development, sibling dynamics, and the experiences of growing up. This made the show resonate with both children and adults, who praised its realism and relatability. The timing of the second season's release also coincided with a period when the show was increasingly being exported to other countries, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom, where it premiered on Disney Junior and was made available on Disney+. This broadened Bluey's reach enormously, introducing the Heeler family to an entirely new global audience and allowing the series to become a cultural touchstone in households outside Australia. Families praised the way the show blended entertainment with life lessons, often noting how the simplicity of the storylines carried deeper meaning. Meanwhile, merchandising and tie-in projects became more prominent. During this period, Bluey saw a surge of branded toys, books, plush characters, and puzzles. These not only helped solidify the show's presence in everyday family life, but also mirrored the broader tradition of children's series becoming multimedia brands. At the same time, live performances and stage shows began to be conceptualized, offering fans immersive experiences beyond the television screen. Critical acclaim followed suit. Many reviewers highlighted how Season 2 refined the humor and storytelling established in the first season, making it more emotionally nuanced without losing its playful charm. Certain episodes were singled out for tackling sensitive or complex topics, such as coping with loss, overcoming jealousy, or navigating big changes in life, all while remaining accessible to a young audience. The momentum of Bluey during this time was further fueled by social media, where clips and discussions spread quickly among parents and educators. The show's ability to connect with both children and adults made it a frequent subject of online conversation, reinforcing its reputation as one of the most important children's programs of the decade. Altogether, the release of the second season marked a turning point where Bluey shifted from being a beloved local series to becoming a worldwide cultural export, shaping conversations about modern parenting, play, and family life. Here's a detailed overview of Season 3 of Bluey and the special developments that accompanied it. Season 3 release and structure. Season 3 of Bluey began airing on 5th of September 2021, kicking off with a heartfelt Father's Day themed special. Further blocks of episodes followed on the 22nd of November 2021 and 13th of June 2022. The show shifted to a weekly release format starting 9th of April 2023 and continued through to April 2024. The season culminated with a 28-minute special titled The Sign. As its grand finale, Wikipedia, The Sign, the only special of the revival. The Sign marked a milestone. It was the first and so far the only extended special in the revived series. Airing on the 14th of April 2024, this emotional minute episode explored themes of change, family, and belonging as the Heeler family faced the possibility of selling their home and moving Wikipedia. DVDs. Hit the shelves with Season 3 wrapped, DVD releases followed. A DVD set containing the complete Season 3, which includes the standard episodes along with The Sign, was released around 28th of May, 2024. Amazon. Why this matters. Season 3's rollout demonstrated the series' growing storytelling ambition and flexibility in format. The Sign stands out as a rare, emotionally weighty extension beyond the usual episode length, deepening the show's creative reach. The DVD release made the season, and its standout special, accessible to fans who appreciate physical media, whether for collection, repeat viewing, or gifting. Let me know if you'd like a breakdown of standout episodes or deeper insight into how The Sign was received by audiences. That brings us right up to August 2025, where Bluey remains a vibrant and evolving presence in children's entertainment, with more on the horizon. Journey to now. All of the moments we've walked through, from the early revival in 2018, the expanding seasons, memorable specials, immersive exhibitions, and product expansions, have led us to today. The show has steadily grown from a beloved local series into a global phenomenon, impacting families, pop culture, and even inspiring new forms of storytelling. What's next? A fourth season of Bluey is expected to be released soon. While no firm date has been announced, sources like Radio Times suggest it may arrive as early as late 2025 or possibly in 2026 CBR. In the meantime, Ludo Studio has been delivering minisodes, bite-sized episodes released in 3 batches during 2024, as a creative bridge between seasons. Wikipedia. On top of that, a brand new feature film is officially in production and slated to premiere in 2027, further expanding Bluey's universe and legacy. The Australian. Extras and expansions. In parallel with these developments, Bluey has broadened its reach through 4 new short-form spin-off series: Bluey Tunes, Bluey Puppets, Bluey Cook-alongs, and Bluey Fancy Restaurant. These are available on YouTube and various Disney platforms and offer fun, quick, and interactive content tailored for young viewers. Parents. Creative expansions haven't stopped there. In 2024, Rug Island, the 3rd soundtrack album for Bluey, was released featuring music from the series, including popular tracks like Octopus and a vocal version of the Bluey theme. Wikipedia. Additionally, Ludo Studio continues to innovate and give back to the animation community, being named one of Time's 100 most influential companies in 2024, launching an animation residency, and securing new development funding for original projects like the upcoming series Willy Wikipedia. So as of August 25, Bluey stands at a crossroads of nostalgia and future-forward growth. Season 4 looming ahead, a movie underway, and plenty of creative content, enriching the journey along the way. And that brings us to the present day. If you've got more to say, like with questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think and what Bluey has meant to you. From its humble beginnings as a small animated idea to growing into a worldwide phenomenon with exhibitions, tours, a recreated house, and now even a revival that continues to spark joy, Bluey's history has been nothing short of magical. It's more than just a show. It's a reminder of family, play, and the little moments that shape who we are. And as we step into Season 4, we carry all those memories forward, knowing Bluey will always have a special place in our hearts.